Okay, so boom. You wake up in the morning, get ready for work, get to work, do the work, you go home, and the first thing and last thing in your mind is, I gotta go to sleep because the day was draining. You do your chores, your tasks, you talk to the family, and then boom, you wake up again, you're back at work. Just go through that whole process 50 times. Boom, work, boom, sleep, boom, work, boom, sleep. When did it get like this? And why is it like this? Inquiring minds want to know, because I don't recall signing up for this when I signed my work contract. As far as I'm concerned, I was promised a lot of social mobility, upward mobility, a whole lot of stuff that just didn't end up happening, and I feel less secure than doing work on my own, or just about as secure when it comes to the rate at which you can be fired at this point. The reality of work of 2025 is there's a lot more work and a lot less life balance, or the rest of the phrase is completely missing from the equation at this point in time. You know, how did we get here? Like I was asking earlier, let's find out. This is Yacht with Me Gaming today, and we're playing one of my favorites, Yu-Gi-Oh! Eternal Duelist Soul. Came out in 2002, I believe, and it's one of the first Yu-Gi-Oh! Card games way, 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 way before Master Duel. So we're talking like ancient, but it's one of the first. And honestly, the fact that we're getting this way back when was pretty groundbreaking. The ban list was pretty up to date. If you play Yu-Gi-Oh, the ban list was pretty up to date for the time, but it was probably one of the better ones for Go format. You'll see me drop a Pot of Greed. I'll drop a Heavy Storm, a Regeki. Shit, one day I might get a Feathers Duster in here, so keep tuned for that one. Hopefully I get to pull that one soon. But other than that, let's get into the video, and we're gonna focus on the topic of work today. Just work in 2025 as a millennial, a Gen Z specifically, hell, even a Gen X, because it's not fun for you guys either. My sources tell me that it's getting kind of shit for everybody across the board as the corporations in power continue to distill work into like the worst the situation that can be. Let's talk about that game. And as always, let me know what games you guys are playing. Throw them in the chat. Even if it's the same game as from last week, I definitely want to hear about it. How far did you get in the game? What was your favorite part? Are you looking forward to any games? Let me know what you want to see me play, or let me know what you want me to know about. I'll try to make a community post at one point so we can talk about games and stuff in there, or just what you're doing to relax. It doesn't have to be gaming. I recently got a wood burning kit, so I'm going to practice that once I get some wood. And then I'll throw some of that in the community tab as well. And so with all that being said, let's get into it and trying to figure out what's going on with work today and how that's going to work out for us. All right. So what I want to start with is kind of the reality of work today. And why I want to start with that is because if you ask most people, especially people older than a millennial or older than a Gen Z, their reality of work is a lot different than our reality of work. For example, the first job you'll have when looking for a job is exactly that, looking for a job. The current landscape for applying to jobs is completely broken, in my opinion. Earth has been salted and scorched, and there's no more fertile ground left to grow really anything of substance. And, that's the first thing you need to realize, is that when you're looking for a job, especially a traditional job in a corporate sense or anything on the job board, for the most part today, it's going to be an uphill battle. And you're going to be in that battle with at least, if you're if you're 10 people, 100 other people, at least 1,000 people at any given time, right? It's really like Fortnite Battle Royale type of situation. You're just trying to get that victory, and none of that's promised. You can be knocked out at any point in time, or nobody will just get the victory. It's also possible too. So let's keep that in mind when we're going forward, talking about the reality of work and reality of even getting a job at this point in time. It's just cooked beyond belief. Well done. Stick a fork in it, fall off the bone, however you want to say it, is done. And with that being the case, we need to recognize that, as I'm saying right now, and we need to recognize where we can pivot to, as we'll kind of find out going forward here. And let's say we get past that part of looking for a job, you actually land a job. Once you land the job, that's not the end of the job, unfortunately. The job, as in preparing yourself and making sure your T's are crossed and your I's are dotted, because the second portion of attaining a job is to learn skills from said job, and not just any skills, the skills that will keep you relevant at this job, because the real reality about that is that the skills you cultivate at this job for this job specifically may not translate to anywhere else. It may only be useful to that job at that point in time that they need you, which is only temporary. So the skills we need to be tracing are skills that are going to be uh, increasing or more so focusing on your longevity within your industry, or stuff that you can use to transfer or translate your skill set developed in this industry to another industry. And I'll explain that here next. So to give an example about how that goes, in my experience, for what's worked for me going forward here, is really boiling down your job to the essential aspects of it. For example, I used to do sales, and while I'm cultivating the talent and the skill of communication, persuasion, talking to people, that has transferred over to a job that I had at a call center, for example. The call center was focused on the IT stuff. So you would think that those two path lines aren't necessarily drawn or aren't there for connection. But in reality, it's not necessarily about the job that you do or what skills your job is focused on. It's about how you can translate those skills into something for that moment, right? So going back to my example of me working at a sales position, it was cold calling. So I was doing cold calling sales for a tech company, try to sell the product. And what was required of me to effectively do my job was to know my product, to know the tech behind the product, and to kind of understand that to a point where I can communicate that to people who wouldn't understand it without further work, without having to have them do that further work, because I'm the one who's done the work. So I'm here to explain it to them in a way that is attractive to them, to where they want to give me money for the product, but mainly so they can understand it, so they can make their own educated decision. Ooh, excuse me about that. And ultimately, when it comes to the skills that were transferable to my call center job, was maintaining a cool head in the middle of a conversation that can go any way, being direct, being honest in communication, you know, and I like to call that knowing what you're looking for and knowing what your client or whoever you're talking to is looking for, or being able to see that before they see it. In a lot of these cases, when it comes to sales and support type roles, the client's going to be acting off of emotion and not necessarily the logic. If you're in that role and it's your job to help them, it's also your job to maintain emotional clarity as far as it goes for the problem at hand. If you're trying to help somebody with a product or sell somebody a product that you think is relevant to them, you have to remain cool so you can showcase them the value of that product, whether that be a service you're providing, a product you're providing, or anything of that nature. It's all about staying the course so that they can understand what you're trying to show them eventually, if not automatically, right? So that's a direct transference of skills from sales to customer support, because even though you're not selling something to someone on customer support, you're still being there to provide them with that backing of emotional stability, as well as calling out inconsistencies or calling out things that you think will be beneficial for them when it comes to their problem, because you're the professional, not them. They can't see what you see on a bird's eye view level because they're not looking at the sheets, the documents, the tables that you have that tell you the information. So it's not even about who knows the information, it's about how that information is delivered. It's not about what you know, it's about how you say it in a situation. Even if you're wrong, you can say something. It don't be wrong. Let's keep it clear. Try not to be wrong. It can get you a lot of trouble. But even if you are wrong, if you said it in a way that was effective enough, for example, then that information can be translated to them, and we can work everything else out from there. It's more so about how you carry yourself. And all of that to say that these skills that I've developed at one job carried directly over to another job, and I was able to translate that into further development for myself, if that makes sense. So the first thing that we need to understand is that at these jobs, we need to be looking for skills that we can develop, that we can transfer directly into another role, perhaps, or into another station, or just that give you inherent value as a person, as a product, um, as a prospect for a job. Okay? So let's keep that in mind as we're working. Not all work is bad, and sometimes doing the extra mile can be beneficial, but it all comes down to knowing who is it going to be beneficial for. Is it going to be beneficial for you and the company, or is it going to be beneficial just for the company? We have to keep these in mind so that when you're working, you're not being worked. You're working, right? Right. So let's keep it pushing. I'll go to the next section and structure it down a bit to what I think a couple things we should be looking out for overall when it comes to this. I won't go too deep on this one. So when it comes to jobs and what you should be looking for or looking to gain on a resume level, right? As far as it goes for information you want to present to prospective employers, here's what I think we should be looking forward to. I think that when it comes to longevity at a job, I would say a year minimum to about 3 years max. The standard rule of thumb that I grew up with hearing and that I've known to be the truth up until I want to say recently has been 6 months minimum staying time. But I feel like that's too meta now. The employers kind of know that if you're moving, say every 6 months, something's wrong with you or you're job hopping, and that's not what they want to see, right? I say keep it a year for two things specifically, at least a year minimum for two reasons specifically. You wanted to see if you have any negotiating power when it comes to your check-ins every year. In most jobs, but especially corporate jobs, you get a yearly check-in at the end of your salary year where they review your performance and everything from there as far as your performance for the last year has been. What I recommend doing, what I've been told to do at these meetings is to argue for a raise, argue for cost of living adjustment every time. Even if you're fine with your pay, you have to show them that you're looking for your worth. You know your worth, you're looking for your money. When it comes to a lot of these jobs, corporate or otherwise, a lot of it's mental. So just be sure you're playing that game as well, because they're damn sure playing it with you when it comes to stuff like that. So these yearly check-ins, in my opinion, are one of the most important indicators as to whether you need to be looking for a job if your situation isn't dire, right? If they're not supremely mistreating you, or if you don't feel like you're getting taken advantage of to the highest degree, you should be looking for that yearly check-in to kind of tally all your achievements and any grievances you may have to go over with your employer. And this is not me saying play by the rules or give them time. No, this is just the order of things that they present them to you in, right? If you want to play the game by the rules. So when you do something else by the rules that's not beneficial to them, it's not anything off the table or anything like that. That can come up in a review for you, if that makes sense. But do advocate for yourself. And I feel like the yearly reviews are one of the better ways to do so as an individual employee. On the other end of the spectrum here, when it comes to staying there for a maximum amount of time, I generally give myself about 3 years without promotion, advancement, or skill development, or anything of that nature before I start seriously looking or considering other offers that are offered to me. When it comes to being at a position, usually, statistically, at least it's been this way statistically for up until this point, about 2025 here, the cutoff, or not cutoff, but the potential for raises or the money you earn significantly drops off after the 3 year mark without any promotions or anything of that nature, as in your position starts to, the money you earn at your position starts to depreciate over time. There's no strict increase that you get. You might get a good increase the first couple of years, but after a while, you usually get about 3%, and that's about it. And that can change. Again, it's case by case because it depends on your value of the company, your employer, so on and so forth of that nature. But it also stands to like mention that most cases, especially with the way things are trending now with AI and jobs being kind of scarce, it's not going to be as cut and dry as getting a raise or arguing for that promotion every 3 years, not every 3, every year or so. And with the way things are going now, we're really looking at the point of you have to be ready to leave before your employer is ready to let you go type of situation. So let's keep that in mind, and let's keep it to about a 3-year maximum, especially for white collar jobs. Um, in my opinion, about 3 years at a place, hell, about 1 year at a place, depending on the strenuousness of your work, you should be gunning for skills to be developed about 1 to 2 years in that you can put on your resume that can get you at least a foot onto the next level of your career. Even if you don't want to stay in this career, unless you have a plan that is moving you out of that career, you need to be working on skills you can develop while you're here. Because again, like we discussed before, they can translate. They often do. Employers generally look for skills that you may have developed at a prior employer that will do better or that will fit with their team as well. So just try to acquire as many skills as you can while you're moving through your work so you can get as many opportunities as are available to you from doing the hard work, essentially. And while I'm talking about getting skills and cultivating skills at work, please don't think that I'm talking about doing this out of your own pocket. Matter of fact, don't do it out of your own pocket. First thing you should be doing when you figure out the avenue you want to work with at work, or even a general avenue that your company can help you develop in, you should be asking them if they can reimburse you or sponsor you to get the skills. And this should always come from the angle of, I'm trying to better myself for the company. Is there any skills that you can help me achieve or attain that can help me better perform for your company? And the odds are there'll either be a program for it, or if you're talking to the right people at a small enough company, medium, small size company tend to do this more often. Always go through your manager first, of course, about what programs and what sponsorships offer for workers who want to further their role. I know when I worked for different IT and call center roles, there was always a pathway to development. A lot of the companies I worked with did prioritize hiring and promoting from in-house, which, you know, is another issue, or issue, not issue, which is another thing we could talk about when it comes to promotions at work and the politics behind that. But there's always a way to finance these things without doing them yourself. And believe me, I know it's hard to finance your own development with the pennies that we're getting now. Like, they're not giving us money to pay for these classes, like they think they are, right? And if you talk to enough people, appeal to the humanity of enough people, let them know that you're trying to better your situation, because America loves an underdog, right? If you're trying to improve your situation, people will take note of that, and people will want to help you with that more often than not. And no, this isn't just a cheat code that I know. This is more from corporate work. This is more of a human thing, right? This is more of a human to human thing. I believe that humans want to help each other. They want to see each other progress. And with that comes the opportunities for you to receive that help. One of the things that we as Americans, as men, as human beings, as women on this planet, whoever, is we hate receiving help more often than not. I hate it too. I'm definitely a victim of that, but I'm here to help you now, and I hope you can receive it, because if you can receive help from me, you receive help from your employer who wants to, in quotations, see you better yourself. And even if that's, something that can help you in the meantime, again, it's all about developing your skills. One thing that I don't necessarily take to heart is that I can ask my employers for additional work and projects to help them with. I personally feel like a lot of times I work hard during my regular 8 hours of work. Why do I have to do extra to show you that I'm working hard? And even though I don't subscribe to that personally all the time, I do know that this is something that I can use, as it is a tool in the game that we're playing right now of corporate politics and corporate, skullduggery and stuff like that. So we just have to play the game. And if that's one way we can win the game, and that's a tactic that I think is necessary to have in our back pockets. We have to sometimes smooth or lose, right? Appeal to the humanity of these people that they still do have it. Let's not get on the hate train if everybody at work is a corporate husk. Some of them are. I know we know them. But most of them we would have a beer with in our off time. We would smoke with in our off time. Let's treat them like that, It's all about being human. That'll get you far. But let's get back to chilling. Let's wrap it all up and understand that while all of these things are necessary on the job and off the job, we know we got to work after work. Let's make sure we take a minute to breathe as well. Because I don't like, again, the world at large right now is kind of all over the place. It's kind of hectic. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of beyond anything we should really be dealing with, I feel like, after all the work that we do. There really should be a 4-day work week. There really should be more money in our pockets. There really should be more fucking games on my game. But I don't have the time to play all the games I want to anyway. Let's calm down. And honestly, what I want to do is take this last couple minutes of the video, just chill, just chat with y'all, get to know you, get to know me, get to know each other a bit more. Me personally, I want to talk about something that's been on my mind. I've been looking at in my free time when I'm not like working on stuff and working on, designs. I was then working on a print on demand shop, and I'll talk about that in the video coming up soon here. But I am listening to a lot of cyberpunk lore lately, a whole lot of cyberpunk 2077 lore, just lore around it, It is a little bit related to the video tangentially because what the hell are we living through, right? But also the persistence in that game, These people, the gonks in Night City, right? The people in Night City are living like this hellish post-capitalism like world where corporations literally overpower the government and literally dictate, what goes on in the world for the sake of bottom lines and profit margins. And as horrible as that world gets, with people getting literal neurological disease that makes them psycho from adding inorganic parts to their systems and stuff like that. It always amazed me the absolute grit and the persistence of the human spirit greater underneath all that chrome has to keep going. I know the hustle aspect of it is bad, and it's hustle culture taken to the absolute max, probably, in my opinion. Like, we really shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't be going as hard to where you die trying to go hard. But at the end of the day, if you abstract that from the atrocities that it's part of, to me at least, it really just showcases the indomitable human spirit that we all hold within us. We all have a drive to do better and to want more for ourselves. And I think that I probably found that more so from Cyberpunk than I did anything else recently. Just the absolute willpower some of these characters have to get through the worst days ever, just to go through the next day, which is probably going to be worse. But they're still there. They still show up until somebody puts them down. And that's what I guess I aim to embody a lot more often than not. I'm gonna keep going until I can't, really. I feel like I don't have another choice. And any other choice that I can make is the one that I want to make. So again, I don't have any other choice. It's very much hang in there, baby. There's no other option, and that's okay. Every day I surprise myself, just like every day Citizens of Night City surprised me as well. Like, I thought Grand Theft Auto Citizen was bad. These guys got it 3 times as worse. The police don't even do anything. They got bought out by a corporation and defunded by the state. They're just there to do parking tickets, which is crazy. But like, people in Night City get up and grind no matter what. Don't matter. And as reckless as that can be, it's also very admirable. Maybe I should tie this into Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! But I don't have the heart of the cards yet. Maybe once I pay off my credit cards, I have the heart of my credit cards. But we'll see how that works out. And then we'll go from there. But I'm gonna cut it short. That was me yapping it up with y'all, and I hope y'all can yap it up with me in the comments. Let me know any thoughts that you've been provoked to, any thought provoking things from your video games or media you've been looking into lately. I might come up next week with some vampire stuff because your boy loves his myth and mythology. Your boy fucks with vampires crazy style. So we'll see. But let me know in the comments, man. I appreciate y'all coming through, yap with me, game with me. And let's keep it 100. Let's look out for each other. If you guys have any recommendations on work or how you guys handle it or any tips, really, let me know. Um, I'm just happy to hear from you all. Thanks for stopping by. Have a good one. It's Yap a lot, and I'm signing off.